Welcome to the Mindset for Runners podcast, helping you to access and unlock your true potential as an athlete. Hey, it's Rob, and welcome to the final episode for 2024, the end of year review and how to really kickstart your 2025. I want to start with a massive thanks to all of you, the listeners and everyone I've met this year who have listened to the podcast, and to all of you who have got benefit from at least one thing I've said in 2024, and maybe from sharing that episode or this podcast with someone you know who you think you could also benefit from. So I'm just so grateful. The podcast has grown exponentially in the last 12 months, and it's all thanks to you. Thanks for listening and thanks for sharing. So let's start with that, with a huge amount of gratitude. And now let's talk about the end of year review. The best way to set up your 2025 is to have a look back at 2024. What are the things that went well? What are the things that you didn't like, didn't go so well? And how do you replicate the good things? And how do you change or improve the things that you don't want to have happen again? It's very simple, but a very powerful process. And I really encourage you to take the time to answer these questions now. And also, we're going to be running a full workshop. That'll be mentioned in the show notes of how you can join that, on how to do a full end of year review, not just for running, but for your whole life. And also for setting up 2025 to make it, even more awesome than 2024. So the description, the course notes, the show notes, come on, Rob, will tell you how to can join that workshop. It'll be on January 16th. So let's get straight into it. So let's look back, and I want you to just think about, or write down if you've got a chance to do this actually live. I want you to think about what went well in 2024. Let's keep this running context, okay? So on January 16th, we'll do in the workshop, we'll do the full, life audit and everything. But for now, let's just keep it for running context. So what went really well in your running? And I want you to think about the highlights or your biggest wins for 2024. And just let them kind of pop into your mind. You might have to go right back in the calendar of your mind. Everyone's got the kind of way that we code and store time. So maybe go right back, all the way back to January. It's a long time ago. And think about what were your biggest wins. So for me, just to achieve my biggest wins this year were learning about the injury that I had in 2023 and overcoming it. Working out how to finally manage it, and then what I had to do to maintain my fitness around it. And for me, that was mobility work and strength work, right? It might not be that for you, but for me, this is one of my biggest wins, was learning about my injury, understanding it, and finding ways to overcome it. And then it was learning about my running form and how that had affected my injury. And now I run so much better than I ever have. So I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I ran a 10K PB this year in my comeback, which was not intentional, it just happened. And so that was a product of the strength work, mobility work, and that change in my running form. So there's a couple of my biggest wins. Coming back to running from having such a long period on the sideline and running a 10K PB, a very good a half marathon time for me, and then finishing a 100-miler. So that'd be my highlights for 2024. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what your highlights could be. They could be, a goal that you hit, a PB, a PR that you did, a community that you joined, a friend that you made through running. It could be starting your running program. Maybe you started the Couch to 5K. Maybe you stepped up and did a longer distance. Maybe you achieved something that you never thought you could this year. And these might be some ideas of, what were your highlights. So just make sure you get at least one down. It'd be good if you get three. Your mind loves having threes, the number three. So having said that, let's move on to the next one. What was your most memorable running moment for the year? So it's a little bit different than your wins. Your wins might have, been the achievement, but what was the most memorable thing? It might have been having your kids at the finishing line for a race, or it might have been a sunrise you saw during a morning run, or just a very, special moment that you had. Maybe you traveled to do a race, or you traveled to a running camp with friends or with your coach, or you travel overseas to do a race, or maybe, you started your own running group or community. And just think about that memorable moment in running. All right. Now I'm going to ask you a broader question, which is what went well in your running in 2024? Again, you can list them down or just hold them in your mind if you're running or driving or washing up or whatever you're doing. But just try to really go into that memory of what went well. So again, for me, it was the routine of my spit it out, Rob, my mobility, my strength work, and understanding the link between that and coming back to running and understanding my running form well. That went so well. And then how I incorporated that into my life and my schedule, and I placed the importance on that. So I dropped 2 sessions of running from earlier how I used to run to pick up the time to do this mobility sessions and the strength sessions. And that really worked well. My mileage is much lower than it has been in the past, but I'm benefiting from this different change to myself. And that's just how you get to know yourself as a runner over the years. So that went really well. Something else that went really well for me was running in the afternoon. So what's going on with me with business and study at the moment, I work so much better with my brain in the morning. Where I used to run in the morning, now I study in the morning, or now I do work in the morning and I run later. And that's really worked well for me from a life perspective. So what about for you? What worked well for you in terms of running this year? It could be something like you got a different brand of shoes or some bit of kit you got, or a different distance, a different mindset as you're running. Just make sure you get 1, 2, or 3 things down. All right. So having looked at those things, I hope you captured a few of the things that were real successes for you or went well this year. Let's move to the things that you didn't really enjoy or didn't like, and let's learn from those things, right? So the purpose of looking backwards is to learn from the past, right? So let's think about the things that you hated or you didn't like or were challenging that you don't want to have happen again. And let's list those things now, and let's not put any judgment on. Let's just see it as it is for the things that you don't want to have happen. So for me, if I look back at the things I don't want to have happen, it was this is more of a life thing, but it affected my running, was having so much in my calendar and my life that running got squeezed in between the gaps. And I know that happens sometimes, but I want to make sure that next year, running gets prioritized alongside my other highest values of family and work. Right, so that's what I want to make sure I'm clear on my values. So my values kind of got a little bit blurred around the edges as those urgent things came up, and so I don't want to have that happen again. So that's the thing I'm taking forward. Maybe saying yes to too many things might have happened in the context of your running or in life, but maybe you had something happen in your running that you don't want to have happen again next year, and really try and grasp that so you can, look the tiger in the eye, as they say, and say, you know what, I went through this, it wasn't pleasant, and I want to make sure I put strategies or tactics or something in place that this is not going to happen again. All right, I'm just going to give you a couple more seconds to finish that one off and grab it before we move on. Now I'm going to ask you, from going through those challenges or those things you don't want to have happen, what did you learn about yourself, or why were they valuable? Okay, this is a counter question to the first one. So the first question was kind of like, what did you not want to have happen? What did you hate? What are things you don't want to repeat? But then what did you learn from going through that experience? Right, so I learned from having my those values kind of blurry around the edges. I learned how important it is to stay focused on those 3 areas of my life and prioritize those things first. And I learned that I don't like having, a full schedule, because it does cause anxiety and it makes me rush from things to things, and I don't like being rushed. But what did I learn? I learned that I can achieve and produce an incredible amount of work in those moments if I need to. I also learned that how important my highest values are, and the feeling that I get when I don't act in accordance with those values. So for example, it might be missing one of my kids' assemblies where they might have, got a merit award in assembly because I'd said yes to something at work. and I prioritize work over being at that, my daughter or my son's assembly, for example. That could be something for you as well. That's where we're an example of, and I know it's not always, this is an idyllic example, but I hope you understand what I mean. Well, you didn't go for that run because you decided to sleep in or something. Or that's an example of lower values trumping higher values. But what I was really trying to get at here is, what did you learn from going through the adversity? Did you learn something about yourself? Did you learn something that it was a scheduling mistake or a values mistake? Or was it a positive that you did a DNF, took a DNF home from a race, but you learned so much from that race, and you're going to take away all of that to put into next year so it never happens again? Right. I had a couple of hard moments in a couple of races this year, and I've put in the strategies so that will never happen again, because it hurts, right? So that's what we want to learn here. We're looking for resources or resourcefulness or something inside you that you access that you didn't think you had. All right, let's move on. How did you grow this year? How did you grow as a runner? Let's keep this broad. It could be, how did you grow mentally or physically, or how did you grow emotionally or spiritually? Now, this might be you started running at a different time of day and you felt amazing. So, for instance, you got up early and when it was still dark, and you got to run under the stars. And that gave you a bigger experience of how big the world is, and maybe that was a spiritual experience for you. That's an example. Or you might have learned the link between your running and your mental health and how important running is. And it's not just going for a run, it's managing your mental state so that you can be better in other areas of your life. How did you grow, physically, and maybe strength, or you're able to do the hill that you couldn't do last year, or you're able to run the distance that you couldn't do last year? We're looking for the growth. So how did you kind of grow as a runner this year? All right, let's move on. We're going to keep moving through a couple more questions just to really hammer this home. I want you to think about what training methods worked for you this year. So maybe you had a strategy or a method that worked, that you can take that out and put into next year. For example, did you do some more speed work this year? Did you run more hills? Or did you run long, slow stuff this year? Or maybe you changed from a long run to a double. For instance, instead of doing a 20K run, maybe you did a 10K in the morning and 10K in the afternoon. Did that work better for you? What's one thing you can take out of your training this year? Maybe it was running with a group. And what's something you can take out of this year that you can, really, really maximize next year? All right, you're going great. All right, let's move on to the next one, which will be the last one on the setbacks. What injuries or setbacks did you have? And this could be a follow-on from another question, might be different, that's why I put it in. What injuries or setbacks did you have this year? And what did you learn from those? So this could be slightly different to the last question. I just want to make sure we grab it before we move on. Sometimes little injuries in 2025 can be avoided through doing that stretch that you have to do, but you didn't do. And you might prioritize a run instead of a stretch in that time that you've got for it. Or maybe it's running on a certain surface or a certain camber or something that you worked out contributes to your injury, and we can learn from that. All right. So what we've done now is basically looked back at 2024, and we've looked at the things that worked well and the things that didn't work well. So now it's time to take those lessons and move them into 2025. And it really is kind of as simple as that. It's how do we take on the things that we liked and repeat them, and the things that we don't like and kind of, push them out. So moving forward into 2025, what do you want to have more of in 2025? Again, let's keep it in running just for this episode. What do you want to do more of in your running in 2025? So do you want to do a longer distance? Do you want to do a trail run instead of a road run? Do you want to run with that group that you've been running with more often and prioritize that? Do you want to learn, hire a coach and get a training program? Maybe it's the first time you've done that. What do you want to run that trail or that course that builds your strength this year? What do you want to have more of in 2025 in your running? I'm going to keep on moving because probably most of you are doing this in your head. And where we want to go next is your habits and routines. So what was it? Just see if you can grab one habit or routine that you built in 2024 that you want to carry into the new year. Again, it might be you got up and you had 2 glasses of water and maybe you had breakfast before you went for a run and you realized the importance of fueling every single run this year, and that's what you want to continue. Or was it getting up earlier for the run? Or was it running late? Or was it running at lunchtime? What habits did you put into place? It could have been, something silly like doing that stretch while you're making your cup of coffee, or doing that stretch while you're brushing your teeth. Something as simple as that build a new habit that you can build on in 2025. Let's go to what challenges do you want in 2025? Where's your growth point going to be? And what I mean by that is, let's look at a couple of ways we can look at it. 2025 might be, I found the distance that I like, or the race that I like, or the community group, or the running group, or the thing that I want to repeat that over and over again. That could be your 25. Awesome. What could be a stretch for you? Like, what distance would you like to step up to, if that's the thing? What speed would you like to do? Where would you like to go for a run, as in you travel for a race, or a new route around home, or a new place you haven't run yet? But what we're looking for here is a goal or a challenge you want to pursue in 2025. Now, it might be a specific race, or it might be more general, like building a running habit, or a specific amount of times you want to run per week, or something. And make it a stretch. Why do we want to make a stretch? If we think all the way back to the goal setting podcast that I did a couple of years ago, that those goals, you're more likely to hit them when there's like an 85% chance. This is from Andrew Huberman's research, and Emily Belsito, I forget Emily's last name, forgive me, their research into what makes people achieve goals. It's when it's more likely you're going to get it than not, but it's not too easy, it's not too hard. I mean, that's why he talked about that 85%. So what's something that just feels just a little bit out of reach that you're going to have to grow as a runner and as a person to hit that goal next year? Again, it could be that race that you've always wanted to do, but you're like, one day I'll do that race. Well, maybe that's a calling to do it next year. Put it in the calendar, put it in writing, put it in your schedule. And maybe this year that you commit to it. Maybe this year you're going to commit to nailing your nutrition and working on that. Maybe this year you're going to nail your mindset, and that's going to be your goal or your challenge. Or maybe, again, it's a race, it's a distance, it's a location, it's a community, it's something for you. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds on that one. Now I'm going to give you a couple of stretch questions just to really hammer home this point about making 2025 a year of growing for you. And I'm just going to ask you that question is, how can I make 2025 even more enjoyable and where I can grow as a runner? So how can I make it even more enjoyable and where I can grow as a runner? And just to talk more around that, what's slightly uncomfortable that you can do in 2025 that will help you look back this time next year and go, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad that I said, this year's the year that I'm going to. And then what's that thing, right? So again, is it about joining the running group? Is it about nailing that distance goal or something? Or is it something else? You have to say no. You have to prioritize your running. You have to communicate to that person in your family how important running is. Maybe it's asking the boss for time to go running during work. Maybe it's something like that that's uncomfortable, but is going to be a real point for you to grow. And improve, and enjoy your running more. All right. And with this, I'm going to finish this kind of section with, what's one thing that you absolutely want to experience in 2025? If you could only get one thing next year, what would it be? For example, would it be running that race that you've always wanted to? Would it be traveling to that destination? Would it be running that distance? Would it be a regular running routine? Would it be having a strength program that's a habit for you? What would it be that if you got that one thing in your running next year, it would make the difference to 2025? All right. Hopefully that comes to you quite clearly for you. This is a great question to ask yourself, because if you can just, sometimes if everything in life is crazy and you haven't got the time or the resources or whatever for your running, if you can just build 2025 around one thing, and it doesn't have to be a result. I'm not talking about a PR or a distance or anything. It could be that, but it could just be that regular running routine, or that you know what I'm talking about. That thing for you, that thing that would make 2025 awesome because you did this one thing. All right. So for what we've done now, we've had a look back at 2024, the things that we want to repeat, the things that we don't want to repeat, and now we've taken them into 2025. I want to do more of this. Here's where I want to be challenged. Here's where I want to improve. These are things I want to grow at. And if I can only get one thing, it would actually be this thing. So now I'm going to challenge you right now to make a decision about 2025. And it could be based on something you've written or something hasn't come to you yet. But I'm going to challenge you to make a decision now about 2025 that's going to really draw you towards that improvement and that growth and that fulfillment that you want from running next year. And again, it could be anything. It could be writing a letter of gratitude to the person that started your running group. It could be that you travel to the destination and do the race that you've always wanted to do. But what is that decision you're going to make? You're going to enter that race that you've been putting off, or you're going to say yes to that coach, to starting with a coach, or again running group, or something like that. Make a decision about 2025 that's going to stretch you and help you grow. Sometimes, the feeling of putting off making a decision, it just takes up so much mental space and so much emotional space. And sometimes it's that clarity of when you make it right. That's it. I'm not going to, ruminate on this anymore. I'm just going to do it. Right? And sometimes that can be so empowering and so freeing and can just, be the difference. So I invite you to make that decision now. All right. So if you're running or driving or whatever, and you've got to this point, I hope you can capture the things that you've taken from this call. And even if all you do is think about one thing that went well, one thing you don't want to have repeat, a new habit or a new growth point or a new improvement that you want next year, and then a decision that you're going to make. And hopefully you can capture those things. I'm going to say thank you for trusting me this year by listening to this podcast. The growth that it's had this year has been unbelievable for me, especially the way that it started and how much it's grown, and the amount of people that I got to meet this year that have said they enjoy the podcast and they listen to it and they share it. I can't tell you how much it means to me, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you the best content and the best stuff that helps you, enjoy your running more and be a happier and a faster runner. If you want to join us for that workshop I mentioned, it'll be on January 16th. All the information will be in the show notes. It'll just be clicking. And the community that we've built in the Mindset for Runners now, I'm going to invite you to join that as well. We've got a community of like-minded runners. We share resources, ideas. I'm in that community. You get access to me. It's all online. We do accountability sessions in there. We do education sessions in there. This is separate to the Mindset for Runners program, which is a full course. This is just this is our community where we connect and we share information. And this call that I'm talking about, this workshop, will be part of that community. So it's just $8 a month to join. The first month is free, so if you want to come along and see if you like it or not. And again, information will be in the show notes with how to join that. I hope you do join us for the workshop on January 16th. We'll do a more in-depth version of what we did today across your life to really, have a look at it from a broader perspective and really try to help you take ownership of 2025 and really own it and make it, just awesome for you in running and in life. Once again, thanks for listening, and have a fantastic New Year's. Celebrate what you've achieved and, use that momentum to make 2025 awesome. Thanks once again, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Mindset for Runners podcast. I hope you got something practical and useful out of this podcast, or something inspiring to help you get out for your next run. If you have a question about Mindset for Runners or athletes in general, please email me at robmason.run@gmail.com and I'll answer your question on an upcoming podcast. And if there's anybody you know who could benefit from the information I share in this podcast, please share it with them. See you next time.